Okay, we are on the hour. It's 6 o'clock, and we're going to get started. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to Vineeta, Mehak, and Suchita for making the time. I'm so excited for the next hour. Just to set some context, we received around 220 questions for you guys. So so this will probably go on till the weekend. No, just kidding. So what we did is we kind of just picked common themes from the questions, and that's how we've kind of curated the next hour. We have a couple of fun things. We have some polls, so for those who are in the audience, please keep your devices handy. And Suchita, Mehak, Vineeta, we also might do a lightning round. We'll see how if time permits. And I know a bunch of folks who've registered also had questions on personal finance and financial advice. As a disclaimer, that we're not going to be addressing that here. But what you can do is download the Basis app. Your questions will get answered. We have a community there. We have a bunch of knowledge boosters. And we're also we're launching an interesting product next week, which could also help you. So get on Basis, get those questions answered. Here we're focusing on building businesses, how to think about financial independence overall, and just learn from these incredible women who are out here with us today. Format-wise, fairly straightforward. We have a few questions. Like I said, we'll try to make it a little bit fun. If time permits, we may take live questions from the audience as well. So there is a Q&A option on Zoom, which you can see. So feel free to put your questions there. We won't promise we'll get to it. As I said, we have a packed hour planned, and so we'll see how this goes. I think we can get started. So instead of doing just a typical round of introductions, and I mean, Vineeta, Mehak, Suchita, y'all don't need introductions, but we've created these fun trivia questions. So I'm just gonna go right into it. We've just taken some fun facts about Vineeta, Mehak, and Suchita and put them together as a trivia. So everyone in the audience, please vote. Panelists, we can all vote as well. So here's question number 1. Mehak recently made her debut on Netflix.
I think her expression is giving it away.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, we'll give it a couple of more seconds and then reveal the answer. Okay, I'm gonna close this poll. Well, it looks like the audience got it right. So Mehak did, in fact, was featured on The Big Day on Netflix. Mehak, I just saw the episode on Friday. But yeah, fun fact. All right, sorry, I have to share the results to see how everyone did. So most of us got it right. Okay. Next question. All right. Prior to starting LBB, Suchita worked with BBC.
Suchita has a poker face. I don't know how to read it.
This is what happens when you fundraise, man. You have to be like dead.
I'm used to poker faces.
Okay, 2 more seconds. Please get your votes in. Okay, this is fairly split. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Suchita, do you want to tell us the right answer?
So evidently, I am fucking boring compared to Mehak, and I did work at the BBC.
Oh, I didn't know that. I voted no.
Sorry?
I voted no.
But I will give you a fun fact of my life at the BBC. I actually made a cameo in Top Gear, which is one of the world's most, so I made a cameo in Top Gear in their India special, and I had a chance to see whoever the lead guy in Top Gear is in his studies. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Hina, you didn't tell me being a celebrity was a prereq for this panel. It's like, no wonder like 220 questions and like I think 80 participants, and they were all on time. So yeah, really
Vineeta,
excited to be with two celebs now.
all three of you are celebrities here. We're honored to have you. Okay, next poll. So question is, Vineeta and her co-founder / husband Kaushik are India's second couple ever to finish the Ironman triathlon. Vineeta, you have a really good poker face too.
It is a really hard question. I think most people will be like, what the hell is an Ironman? It's not like BBC and Netflix that everybody knows. People are wondering if I featured on the movie Marvel.
Okay, it's infinitely harder. So
Yeah. This is not the movie, just to be clear, since the theme seems to be that.
Okay, I'm gonna close this one and share the results. Vineeta, do you want to do the big review?
The catch is they're not second, right?
Yes.
Because nobody wants to do the Ironman, so we got to be the first couple.
Yeah, so this was my version of a trivia question. So the right answer is they're actually the first couple in India to finish this, which is, well, it's really hard. All right. Yeah, we have a couple more of these, and then we'll get to the questions. Okay, the next one is Suchita has an engineering degree. Okay, we have
laughing.
okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to close this one. This one is also fairly divided. Suchita, do you want to reveal the right
Bro,
answer?
engineer banke BBC kaun jata hai? Like,
Exactly.
first off, is based purely on logic. That is not possible. No, I'm not an engineer, yaar. Not an engineer. I'm a humbled econ graduate.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. Mehak started WedMeGood when she was in college. Okay, I'm going to give this, wow, everyone's responses are coming in really fast. I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Okay, wow, this is
100% accurate.
no.
Oh, okay.
Meg, do you want to tell us when you started WedMeGood?
I want to see the results.
Oh, sorry, I thought I hit share results. Sorry. This is fairly split.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wasn't even thinking of weddings in college. Yeah, who thinks about weddings and wedding planning in college? But no, I started it after I got married.
Great. And okay, last 2 questions. Okay. Next question is both LBB, which is Suchita's startup, and WedMeGood started as blogs. Okay, I'm going to close this. Share results. I'll do this one quickly. It is true, I think. Everyone, most of you got this right. And last one. Sugar is Vineeta's first startup. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm closing it. Well, majority did get it right, but Vineeta, do you want to shed some quick light there?
Sugar is my nth startup. I will not tell you what N is.
Wow, I had no idea.
Awesome. Okay, so that was the intros. Hope everyone learned a little bit more about our panelists, and I guess all of you learned a little bit more about each other too. Great. So that's the end of the polls. We'll kind of get right to it. Like I said, we got so many questions. It was quite the task for us to sift through this. Format-wise, we'll just do Q&A. I mean, we'll try to keep the answers brief and crisp, and would love to hear all your views. If there's a specific question for one of you, I'll make sure to mention that. So I guess first question, how do you take the plunge for entrepreneurship while maintaining financial security? Or how do you think about your personal financial security while taking this plunge? Vineeta, do you want to start?
I'm actually the worst person to start this because I really did not think this through. That's hence the answer to my how many startups I have is N. So when I was graduating from IIM Ahmedabad, and I wanted to start up, and I had like a high paying investment banking job, but I decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start up because I really thought about the fact that I don't have too many liabilities. I incidentally didn't have a student loan, and I really thought that like the best exposure into how to be an entrepreneur you get by being one. And I knew I was going to be one someday. It's just that I wasn't sure about now or later. And I thought investment banking is definitely not going to help me become an entrepreneur. So although my hiring manager advised me that, if you work here for 3-4 years, you'll be able to like raise $1 million smoking across the floor, and you'll have so much of a network, etc. But I really thought that, I just wanted to go into it because I felt that the timing was right. I did not have much of a safety net or any, I come from a middle class background. So I just, and my first startup was bootstrapped. So life was really hard for the first few years trying to run my first startup. But I think I adjusted my lifestyle accordingly. I think the only things I would splurge on were like Nike shoes and Gloria Jeans coffee. So yeah, and I think for me, it was, and when I started, I thought that I was gonna get really rich by 30, and that was really the plan. But it doesn't happen that way. It does take a lot of years and a lot of effort for most things. And my opinion is that what do you think about the way you think about personal finance, or the way you think about like any life goal that you have, like you want to do a marathon or you want to lose weight or whatever, or the way you think about business is actually very similar. First few years, it's like a lot of hard work. You don't see results, and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Always wondering what's going on. Like you're always getting on the weighing scale, and you never have the good news for many days. And then when it happens, things become exponential. So in the last couple of years, things have happened. But is there a way to get to that stage without going through these many years of, iterating and just figuring out and going through the grind and not seeing proportionate results? I don't think so. At least in my experience, I have not seen that. But just to be clear, all of this is hindsight. I mean, when I decided to start up, I thought about really getting rich very quickly. It's not that easy, so it is actually, I think it does take like a long time to build something world class. And but now that I think about it, I think that just like patiently, consistently putting in the work does get you the results eventually. And when they come, they are disproportionate again. So it's never linear. It's always like very flat and then exponential. That's what my view has been on everything, not just this, but whether mutual fund portfolio or anything else, from running a marathon to trying to get fitter, or any other passion that I've pursued so far.
Awesome. Also want to get to the point, and I know Mehak, both of you, Vineeta and Mehak, you started, it's basically a family business that you all are running. So also want to get into that in a minute. But Mehak, do you want to take this? How did you think about it?
Yeah, so I'm the exact opposite of Vineeta. I wanted to retire from American Express. I was so happy in my job. I used to love it. It was like the best work-life balance. I was like, this is amazing. Loved my job and all of that stuff. Never thought of starting up, and I'm inherently a very risk-averse person. So for me, when I started, like we said, WedMeGood started as a blog, and it was more like me documenting my wedding journey when I was getting married. I always considered it just like me moonlighting on the side while I'm having this nice cushy job on the side, giving me the returns that I need to live the life that I want, until it was, I was discussing this with my husband one day, and he's more of a risk taker than I am. And he said, look, if we really want to make this big, we have to be all in. We can't be like, okay, this is something we're doing on the side. It has to kind of be all in. And we made a decision to kind of jointly quit our jobs together, which is kind of very strange, coming from being very risk averse to being like two people with absolutely no income, living in a city. So yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. I think we had, a small kind of pool of savings to get us through, the first year or so. And like Vineeta said, we kind of tightened down our lifestyle and, just ensured that we were just, working hard and ensuring that we are getting through those times. And that's how we kind of scaled from there.
Cool. Suchita, what was your transition from corporate?
For sure. So actually, I was, similar to Mehak, I worked full time before, and my like day job was, working at BBC Entertainment, and then on the weekends, just out of boredom, I would, go and explore interesting things that were happening in Delhi and discovering all these really interesting small to mid-sized businesses and brands. Funny fact, LBB started on my savings of like 60,000 rupees. Off of which 40,000 rupees was spent on wall paint because when I quit my job and we moved into a small office, I didn't know how much that shit cost. So I was just like, bhaiya, aake kar lo, and the next thing you know, my savings have been pissed away in fucking paint. So yeah, you live and you learn. No, but long story short, I think the one, I wouldn't say piece of advice, but when I started out, I was 23. You're a little reckless when you're that young, right? That worst case scenario, man, I'll get another job again if this shit doesn't work out. And I think that level of like, I won't say flippance, because I've always been like super ambitious and I've wanted to always do really well. But I think you have that thing in you, which is, my worst case scenario is I'll go back to working, but let me give this a shot, right? What do I have to lose? I don't have any liabilities. So I think that was my, frame of mind. But yeah, I obviously evidently made a lot of stupid mistakes. So guys, just don't piss away your savings on wall paint.
Nice. So yeah, coming back to the family side of things, if you're obviously comfortable talking about it, I mean, Vineeta, Mehak, you both started your companies with your significant other. How did y'all think about like household, whatever, savings, expenses? You both also have kids. Could you share some tips?
Honestly, we didn't think. I think if we had thought, we probably wouldn't have started. Because Anand keeps telling people when they ask him this question about starting something with your spouse, and he's like, don't try this at home. And it's kind of, the initial days are, of course, really hard, not just in terms of the entire financial aspect of it, because you're two people who are no longer putting in the kind of salaries you were from corporate jobs. But it's also two people who are in a new environment and who are put together, and you're not used to seeing each other in a work environment, right? So it takes a little bit of time to adjust and to get used to that. And I think we are now at a point where at least, in terms of roles and things like that, I know that, okay, this is like his strength, he knows this is my strength, and that's kind of how we divide our work. If there's a decision that needs to be taken, that's totally his domain, that's something he will do. If there's a decision that's my domain, that's something I will do. Purely, from a financial point of view, I think it's important to have that conversation, because ultimately, if this is a common goal, then you are going to be having a discussion about finances and how this is going to impact your lifestyle, whether in the short term or long term, etc., etc. And so I think it was just a question of getting it out together and have that conversation before we started.
So yeah, I mean, there are two parts to this question. Again, I think the first part is about like surviving just each other and like so much of each other. And I agree with Meg, when we were starting up, we actually we were sitting on a flight and we drew out that, okay, this is your these are your functions and this is what I would look at. And then like wherever finally this person would have the decision deciding what for these, and then in spite of that, in the first couple of years, because we were working together for the first time, there was a lot of friction and a lot of arguments in office. And it used to, I think within like couple of years we figured out the equation, and then over a period of time, what we realized is that we're a great team. So we're very like different in terms of right brain, left brain. We really respect each other for what we bring to the table, and we realized that we're building something awesome. So it's worth it to put in the effort to put up with the sometimes not having it our way. And we still have disagreements. Also, like I think in our journey of starting up till now, we've had multiple things, like first when you start up, like the initial disagreements. Then after that, when we had kids, then you would get added disagreements linked to sharing the load and then mental load. And we really take a pen and paper and divide our work related chores as well, because I really believe that as women, we need to ask for our better halves support in terms of everything. And I put a number to the mental load as well, saying that, this is how we can divide our chores appropriately, so that I can, I'm not okay with saying that, okay, we can do 40-60 at work so that we can be 60-40 at home. That sort of an equation doesn't work for us. So, I'm very insistent on having like an almost equal, it can never be equal, but, at least striving for sharing the load as equally as possible. And so, yeah, and then of course, COVID happens, it again rocked the boat. So, but we've, over a period of time, we've like gone through now 2-3 crises, and I think now we feel that we're a great team. And the big picture is like so important that we're sort of put our differences aside from time to time and just very quickly are able to. So it does happen that we have a fight at office, we bring it home, and the other way. But overall, we're able to I think we look forward to it more than anything else. And of course, the trust is immense. In terms of financial planning, so again, the thing really is that our lifestyle, I mean, we truly believe that our entire wealth is going to come from the business, and we don't want to touch that, but we still try to have the discipline of saying that, okay, itna salary hai, fir bhi let's try doing 30% saving because we have kids, etc. So some bit of discipline, so that I think fundamentally we don't want our lifestyle to exceed our earning, so that there is that discipline of not becoming extravagant before we can really afford it, but with the faith that our company is finally going to help us create that wealth that we want for ourselves and for our future.
In a lot of ways, I feel like it's like having a kid together, it's like suddenly it's like this common goal, and you have to raise this goal and kind of figure it out on your own. So you're always going to have this initial year is always like full of friction, but then you figure it out over time.
Right. Cool. So I think we can switch gears a little bit, and maybe Suchita can start with you with this question. So the question is, and I guess this is I guess I'll preface this with on average, because it's a bit of a general statement here, but on average, women tend to act after a lot of thought versus men who are known to be a little bit more impulsive. When you were starting out, how did you sort of tackle this? Like, was LBB, I mean, were you thinking about it for a while? Did it kind of just happen? And you mentioned you were really young when you started it off as well. So what was that decision like?
So I think the one thing that I will clarify is, and this is a mistake that a lot of us make, right? I don't think I don't think just because you are female, you will have feminine tendencies, or if you're male, you'll have masculine tendencies. I think at the end of the day, irrespective of what gender you conform to, your leadership style or your decision-making style could vary basis your life experiences and also basis your sort of like risk appetite. And I think for me, I've always and even when you think of like the core of LBB, right, it is about having an open mind and trying new things, and that requires a little bit of impulse, right? You need to be cool giving things a shot, and I think I actually fall into the I'm forgetting the latter prior whatever, I fall into like the slightly more impulse bucket versus the bucket of someone who really think through. In fact, my co-founder is the opposite of me, right? Where he'll think through things for like 600 years, and then by the 600th year, I'm just like, bhai kar lo, yaar. So we have, and he's male, right? So I think I don't think there is a thing such as women are X and men are Y. I think at the end of the day, you need to have the introspection to figure out what are your sort of personality traits and how do they extend to a leadership style or just generally your working style. I don't know if I answered the question, but just think through what your tendencies are, and I know it's Women's Day, and Get Basis is about financial knowledge for women, but I think at the end of the day there are always going to be first principles no matter what you do, irrespective of what your gender is, and I think when it comes to decision making, irrespective of whether your tendency is to be impulsive, which is like me, or your tendency is to really think through things, which is like my co-founder, at the end of the day you need to figure out what are the first principles that I need to align myself to in order to actually make great decisions. So that's the way I would answer that.
Thanks. That makes sense. Mehak, anything to add?
Yeah, like I'm the exact like thinking through things like 20 times. I'm like that. I'm not an impulsive person at all. But I think it's important to recognize what that trait is and then surround yourself with other people who will be a contrast or complement to it, right? So in our case, like a lot of my team, or whether it's my co-founder, my husband, he's pretty impulsive. So, and I recognize that in myself. So I think even when it comes to like these entrepreneurship traits, as long as you recognize what you are, even if it means that you are thinking through 10 times, there's actually nothing wrong with doing that, as long as you know that you can build a team around you and actually achieve something together. So that's kind of
I just want to, I mean, based on the entrepreneurs that I've met and whatever data I've read, I think there are a lot of women entrepreneurs that are actually accidental entrepreneurs. So it may actually be that, that many of us like think through a lot before diving into it. I don't know the data, but the one thing is, what I've seen in my experiences and is that, when you're looking at any space from outside, a lot of times you think that, oh, this is a problem with this category, I really need to do this. And then first thing you do is you do market research, right? You talk to 100 people and then they're like, are you going to pay for this if I start this? And then you get some data around it and then you say, I'm going to start off. When you actually do start up and create that product, you realize that out of those 100 people, like, maybe 3 want to pay for it actually. But when a survey, they were ready to pay for it, right? So many times just doing market research is really not enough to figure out what's going to work. And I really feel that a lot of businesses have gone out of pivots primarily because of the fact that whatever you know about a market from observing it from outside is very different from when you actually take the plunge and do startup. The classic case for us, everybody says that it's the stupidest thing in the world to ever think about trying to compete with like L'Oreal, Unilever, and P&G. Like, you're in a market where all 3 are there and they are like really big FMCG companies. Like, it would be stupid for somebody to go up against them, right? For us, it wouldn't have been possible to even dare to do something like this in 2015, but we did it because we were running this e-commerce company and we had a lot of consumer insight that pointed us that way. And I really feel that when you're in that, I mean, if entrepreneurship is a thing that's exciting to you, sometimes it's very hard to think through everything. And I do feel that just being slightly more open to taking these random moonshots, which may work, may not work, and being okay with failing and trying and stuff like that, it really increases our odds of succeeding in a startup. And I do feel that sometimes it could be that just like as women, when we grow up, there is so much like cultural influence of being sincere and like scoring really well and stuff like that. It could come in the way of us taking these big gambles. But I'm seeing it change, and I really think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur for women.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing. I'm totally with you on what customers may say they want versus just learning by doing versus learning through surveys and research, etc. Okay, so we are getting some questions from the audience. I do want to ask a couple of more things. And Mehak, this question is for you around, I mean, you get kind of the front row seat with, people who are getting into this phase of their life, marriage, etc. And I think even on the big day, you'd made this comment around like, I think brides, taking ownership and, having, I think you mentioned like being mindful, having a mind of their own, something like that. Like what is that dynamic you see in kind of, new couples who are kind of joining forces?
Right. So, again, like when we started, a lot of people told us that, ये तो mothers and fathers decide करते हैं शादी की चीजें, तो they pay for them, the venue, they are not going to go online and all of this stuff. But like Vineeta said, that they had an insight and they felt like there was something there, right? So I think at that time as well, we realized that this is going to change. And as women are gaining more financial independence, they are going to start paying for things and going to start choosing things for themselves, especially when it comes to like, their wedding. And right from the beginning, we've always had, 80% of our audience has been women. So that kind of proved right. We were actually the first platform to actively target women for weddings. Like it seems very obvious now that of course it's the bride making decision, but back in like 2014, most of the platforms there were targeted towards venues or like dads or moms and things like that. I think the change we've seen over the past few years has been that initially when we used to get these women, they would be limiting themselves to, let's say, a few decisions, in the wedding when it comes to maybe like choosing the makeup artist, the photographer, their outfits, things like that. But over time, now if we look at it, majority of your queries from women are coming from like venues, wedding planners, like hardcore starting their wedding planning with them, right? They are paying for all of these things themselves. And I personally do believe it's going to be like how it is in the West, because women are getting married. They're getting married at an age where they are financially independent, so they can pay for a chunk of their wedding themselves. And I think that's just going to evolve, and have the couples are going to start paying for a lot of a majority of the share of the wedding themselves.
Right. I think that's very encouraging and empowering. In fact, on the show, I'm just a couple of episodes in, but it's just been amazing seeing how women kind of just take charge. In fact, I was watching it with my husband, and I joked that some of the guys just didn't say anything. A lot of those interviews they were doing with couples. So it's I think it's positive for sure. So I think next question. This is switching gears a little bit, and probably for all of you, in terms of financing your business, right? I think all of you have raised funding, but how did you think about bootstrapping versus raising money and giving up equity? And I think Suchita, for instance, you started, really young. I think Vineeta, your first startup was also when you were much younger. Was it? I know you probably get this question a lot. Fundraising as a woman, as a young woman, etc. What was that sort of decision or experience rather like?
Vineeta, do you want to start?
I've been answering this question a lot of late. I think before that, I don't know how many in the audience are from are looking at businesses which will be VC invested, but I think that's the first big choice that as an entrepreneur one has to make. And I learned it the hard way, that the way like the entire logic of venture capital works is that they invest in 10 companies and they expect 2-3 of them to actually make up like 3-4 times the entire fund. And when they look at businesses that way, their expectation is that they want to invest in companies which are addressing very large market sizes and have potentially businesses that can scale up to be like what they call a unicorn or whatever, $1 billion valuation, etc. Right now, many of us start businesses that may not really fit that thing, where we think that we could create a company which could be like 500 crores in revenue, and it could be profitable, but it may not be a unicorn, right? And would that fit into like the thesis of most venture capitalists? May not. So the first question to really think about is like what kind of funding makes sense, because there are a lot of options. There is of course debt, and like there is like raising smaller rounds through family, and then later on trying to find like a private equity investor, and then venture capital is just third. It's just that it gets written so much about that we all get like drawn to the idea that we have to pitch to VCs. And I think I learned this the hard way. Like for the first many years, at 23 I wanted to start a women's lingerie brand, and like I got my first rejection from everybody from Sequoia to Matrix within a month. And then I decided after that, like when you have a breakup and you're like, I'm never going to see a guy again, I decided I'm never going to raise money again. And then 5 years I bootstrapped, and it was like a big struggle. So then next time when I started up with my with Kaushik, we decided that let's raise like an angel round. And we realized that at whatever math we were doing at that point of time, it wasn't seeming like a VC business because the market size wasn't large enough. Now, as it turns out, and that's when we started thinking about like a bit of debt, a bit of equity, and fundamentally like a business like ours, which is selling products which have a lot of inventory, so much of the capital just goes into inventory. And it's just logical to finance half of it through debt rather than raising a lot of VC capital and having that pressure to, really grow like 3x, 4x year on year. And so I think the most important first decision is what is the right kind of funding. And I do think that I do think that women still find it slightly harder. There could be genuine reasons as well. Like for instance, most VCs are men. Men cannot understand why liquid lipsticks are like more long lasting and white makes more sense than a creamy normal lipstick. And they can't relate. Like if it's a fancy food, health food company, they can just relate so much easier. And I think it's natural that they don't invest in businesses where the connection is not as easy for them to make. Secondly, I think I've seen a lot of men CEOs talk about large target addressable market, and I think TAM is the biggest way to a man's heart is through his stomach or whatever. Way to a VC's heart is through TAM. Like you just have to talk about TAM, and they're like, also TAM means I'm sorted, right? And and I've like when I speak to women, they talk about like numbers, like this is my contribution margin, this time next year I'm going to grow like 100%. And then I feel that like probably that's what they want. They want these large, aggressive 5-year whatever kind of bold businesses, which might fail 7 out of 10 times, but that's their business. And that's why they're not probably investing as many women. So there are and then of course there might be biases, some subtle biases. So I think there is, women would probably it would take another 10-15 years for enough women-led companies to get funded. But it's not going to stop us from starting companies, and we just have to figure out other alternatives. And for a lot of businesses, I think even for a lot of like media companies or consumer brands, it does make sense to look beyond like the venture capital fundraising, although it seems like the most glamorous in the space. For us, it's been very hard, but yeah, now that we're at a stage where the business is growing much faster, it's become easier over a period of time. And I think like consumer brands is a category which is now suddenly opened up and become glamorous because some thesis has changed, and then now it's become easier. I think you could be at the right place at the right time with whatever category you are in, but it's very hard to predict. So might as well start your company, build it, like grow it on your own basis, find alternative sources of funding, and keep investing. And if it becomes that space which becomes hot for a VC, great. If it doesn't, you still have your fundamentals. Nobody can take away what your consumer is paying you. That's real cash, and that's like the most valuable revenue. Is like revenue and profit are the most valuable things that a business can have.
Yeah, and just to share a quick anecdote there. I was recently talking to, of course, a male VC, and like talking about, basis and what we're doing, this user empathy driven product, etc. And he literally stopped me, and we had a common friend or an acquaintance, and he was like, who is male as well. And he was like, how would X pitch this? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, this is how I'm pitching it, but I like the TAM as a way to a VC's heart. I mean, just painting that bold vision. I'm gonna note that down. Mehak, Suchita, anything to add about deciding both how to finance your business and then
No, I think Vineeta covered it all, man, from top to bottom, and I think this goes back to unfortunately, if you open a newspaper or if you open Twitter, right, there are all of these like false fantasies that are sold to you. It's kind of like fucking Cinderella. I mean, not fucking Cinderella, but like it's kind of like Cinderella. Sorry, so sorry. It's a Thursday
We'll talk
evening.
about fucking Cinderella offline.
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant. Sorry, I need coffee. No, so but it's kind of like like when you're a kid, right? You're sold all of these stupid fucking fairy tales about how someday someone will come and sweep you off your feet and you will live happily ever after. I think there's a lot of that narrative and storytelling that's currently happening when you open a Twitter or when you open a big popular magazine or newspaper or whatever. And I think that's where it's really important to, internally and externally figure out a way in which you, segregate signal versus noise, right? A lot of what's out there is just, noise and cacophony. And it's very easy to get distracted by a lot of these things. I've gotten distracted by a lot of these things, which derail us, for a couple of months, 2-3 odd years ago. But I think, it's extremely important to just cut out the noise and be really focused on what it is that you truly want to build. And I think that's where, to Mehak's point, right, you need to just make sure you have rock solid advisors around you and people who will sort of like center you to the harsh reality or the truth of what it takes to actually run your business. A lot of female founders who I meet are super ambitious, right? To Vineeta's point, they'll be very numbers oriented. I do think where collectively we guys, generally need to improve is when in Rome, right? So if it takes showing a sexy TAM and opening a VC's appetite, you need to learn those tricks of the trade, right? And I think that's another thing that I've learned the hard way, which is you need to figure out what environment you're in and really acclimatize yourself to that, versus expecting people to acclimatize themselves to you. And I think that's just the way things go, right? So the practical, sort of 2 cents that I give is really think through, what is signal versus noise in your business. To the point Vineeta made, every business doesn't need to be large. You could have a 1 crore revenue business where 50 lakhs are being deposited in your account every day. Chances are you're earning more than most of us on this call, right? So I think that's the way I look at it. And the other sort of feedback or 2 cents would be, however, if you want to play the VC game, right, you want to play I want to raise a lot of money and build $1 billion business, you need to get used to talking in the language that someone needs to hear you, speak in. Unfortunately, there's no 2 ways around it.
Mehak, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, exactly this whole concept, this whole VC concept, if you look at all the a bunch of firms that made noise 3-4 years ago, right? I probably 80% of them have now shut down. All of the ones got like a bunch of VC funding. They were like the hot startups at that time. People were like, I am the Uber for this and I am the Uber for that and I am the Zomato for this and that, and all of like half of them have shut down now, right? And I think that's what took us time also to understand is that a VC's business is to make sure that you grow at an exponential pace, and he would rather see you fail than see you either you succeed fast or you fail fast, right? He's not interested in a sustainable business that can grow, and that's just their game. So I think it's important to know whether that is right for you or not. There are a lot of businesses that don't even need VC funds, and in fact those businesses might be better if they don't raise VC funds, because the kind of growth pressure that you get with a VC fund in terms of showing growth might not be that amenable to that business. And in that pressure to grow, you might end up doing or taking some decisions which would harm your business and eventually cause you to maybe lose a bunch of cash, burn a bunch of cash and shut down. So, it's really about knowing what your business is, and if it's very possible to have a sustainable business without actually getting venture capital. The other thing is that, the best kind of capital you get is when you actually don't need it. So when you can go to a person and you're already breaking even, or you're already close to not, burning that much cash, and you can go to an investor, you're going to get much more favorable terms to you and not be, have a ridiculous term sheet in which like crazy liquidation preferences in which you'll be a pauper by the end of it, even if you sell your business. Like, you need to navigate all of those things, and you need to kind of negotiate from a power of strength. It's like, I feel like sometimes House of Cards has given me my favorite negotiating lines. When it says always negotiate from a power of strength, never negotiate from a power of weakness. So whenever we have raised funds, we've raised when we really didn't need them. And we needed them for growth, not for survival. So that's one. And secondly, one other thing I would say is that I see too many people who start a business and before even selling one thing, they think about the fundraise, right? And to me, that's just like, that is just not how I would approach the business. If your time is going to go into fundraising, you're not actually going to be doing the selling. So sell first, establish something and then move to the fundraising bits.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on the topic of burn, etc., right? So a couple of other questions we'd received from folks who registered, and I'm going to combine two things. So how do you kind of keep the balance between sort of personal savings, and I think everyone here bootstrapped at some point or the other, with your business, like personal savings, reinvesting that into the business, expenses, of course, investing for the future. Were there sort of these, tough decisions you had to make? What was there a framework? How did you kind of go about that? Anyone can go. Suchita, do you want to?
Sure. I think the one thing that I'll kick off with is, and again, I wish I read this book earlier, but psychology of money, right? Like, I feel like that should be taught in school. Because I think the problem is, I've seen like DCs, myself included, obviously, we have a really like weird relationship with money, right? Because a lot of us grew up, around parents whose, sort of port of entry was a professional job, right? I didn't really come from a business family. So, you're used to seeing your parents treat money a certain way. And I think that's where, a lot of our, spending habits or lack thereof come from. So I was joking with a friend the other day, but my parents were so strict growing up where I wasn't allowed to spend a rupee more than, what was sort of like designated, where the first thing that I did after I got my first, fat paycheck was I went and I spent some stupid amounts of money on, luxury
Paint.
brand. Yeah, like some like paint. Yeah. So the point that I'm getting to is, I think at the end of the day, your relationship with money, how much you want to save, how much you don't want to save, what your personal ambitions and aspirations are, and also where your expense goes, right? All of that is a function of how you look at your relationship with money, and I think establishing that is key. And again, I don't think it's a male or a female problem. I think a lot of it is all of us come with certain amount of with a certain amount of baggage in terms of how we think about our expenses and how we think about our lifestyle. I think the one great thing that I did in my 20s was I just became very particular about who my friends were, right? So and I think that's a big unlocker, right? If you are friends with folks who live a similar life to you, who are generally, chill about what they do and, where they spend their time and their money, at some level it will percolate into, your sort of choices when it comes to your expenses as well. So I think I will give you bullshit advice, but check out, Psychology of Money, fantastic book. I wish I'd read that earlier. And the one thing that's helped me is just make sure you're around people who help you also, think through your lifestyle choices fairly.
Mehak, anything to add?
I think it's what Vineeta mentioned earlier is like how we kind of look at the cover for us. That's going to be the pot of gold at the end of the tunnel. So for personal finances, I think most entrepreneurs, it might seem very glamorous when we look at all these fundraising stories. Somehow people assume that, this 30 million or whatever million you've raised is coming into your bank accounts. And somehow, something like that. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, we know that that's the pot of gold at the end of the tunnel. So we take, those decisions in terms of maybe sacrificing on what would be your market salary outside, because you feel like you'll get that return over there, and it's a conscious decision at that point of time, and it's up to you to take that. And I think if you are in this game, at least in the VC game, that is something you do definitely have to do.
Vineeta,
So
anything
I
to
think I think for most entrepreneurs, the biggest challenge is always like the first of the month or second or whatever, right? Because that's like salary day, and no matter what scale you're at. So I remember because you mentioned personal finance, etc. I used to at like earlier on, like salary day, bank account, company has this much, okay, savings, they transfer everything, like just ensure the salaries are paid. Then after like X number of days, like transfer it back, because apparently director can loan to the business without having like any interest liability, etc. So did a lot of that. I think apart from psychology of money, which I agree completely should be like a textbook for at least people in college. I think apart from that, the thing that I've really a quote that I really live by is like, especially in your 20s, 30s, you really want to overvalue your time and undervalue your money. I really, don't think as long as you have your like basics like health insurance, life insurance, etc. in place for extreme contingencies. I personally feel that like, when you're like in your 20s, you have the ability to take some more risks, even personal finance risks, and just do like like build and create something, because there is you have that opportunity to really put in those grind years. I really feel that those grind years are important for things to really work out in future, and you have a lot of energy in your 20s. So I personally didn't think too much about savings, and I was and I invested everything into the company. And of course now we're at a stage where obviously I don't even have like 10% to cover the like payroll in case we have that problem. But now obviously I don't so now my personal savings are finally at a stage where they're safe, but they've been quite unsafe for a long time. And I really I think that when you're trying to build a company, it's very difficult to not put in like those last 5 lakhs, because you sometimes have to hang in for 1 more month or 2 more months for things to really take off. But you, as long as you have the conviction that this is really gonna pay up. And I know way too many entrepreneurs who've gone down to like not have like a zero bank account and like come back from there, and when you come back from there you can emerge stronger. So I of course have a very high risk appetite, and that's how I've always been okay with putting all my savings into the business. But yeah, I mean, whatever you're comfortable with in terms of personal choice, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. We won't answer this, but the audience wants to know how many of you hold Bitcoin. Just looking at the upvoted questions. That's the top of the list. We don't have to get into where you guys are putting your money. Okay, so I do want to do this lightning round. I've been very excited about it all day. So the way we'll do it, and it won't be like a typical lightning round. There's there's three of you on the panel, but what I'll do is just it's 6 questions, so 2 each. So not, shouldn't be too hard. And I'll just go like, so I'll start with you, Suchita. So first question for Suchita, second for Mehak, third for Vineeta, and then we'll do 1 more round. So
they're used to lightning rounds.
As quickly as possible, if you can answer this. So, okay, Suchita, first question for you. How do you unwind or take a break?
Ooh, I play with my dogs and I read. Yeah, I used to run, Vineeta, a lot, but then I screwed up my knee really badly. So up until I sort that out, I would play with my dogs and read. By the way, do we get a hamper? Like, what's the ROI here?
You just might. Okay, second question for Mehak. When do you feel the most self-doubt?
When do I feel the most? Sorry?
Self-doubt.
When do I feel the most self-doubt? For me, like I mentioned, I'm inherently risk-averse. Whenever we're kind of taking the plunge into pivoting or launching something new, I'm always the person that's kind of like, oh, should we, shouldn't we? But then I read something that day which said you should base your decisions, make your decisions based on your hopes and not your fears. And I think that really kind of resonated with me. So since I've read that, every time I'm feeling self-doubt, I kind of repeat that to myself. And I'm like, if I hope that this is going to be something big, I should probably just
go for it. Nice. Awesome. Vineeta, what's the best career advice you've received?
For me, it was that you learn the most about entrepreneurship by being an entrepreneur. And that's when I decided to say no to an investment banking offer and started up.
The 1CR1, the Very popular. You were on a cover of a magazine or something, right? Because you declined that investment banking offer. Okay.
Yeah, the week. I think they put me on the cover and they shut down.
All right. Next question, Suchita. What's a superpower you wish you had?
A superpower I wish I had. Oh my God, what are these like deep shit bro questions? I don't know. Sorry, what's a superpower I wish I had? Shit. Oh my God, now you put me on the spot. Oh yeah, I wish I don't know. I wish I was better at investing money. Superpower I wish I had. See, there you go. Now I will download your app.
Yay! Awesome.
Plug you
We can help with that. Yeah. All right, Mehak. What is something about your career you believed earlier but now realize is wrong?
I always believe, and I think this is something very typical to like the Indian education system, right? That you have to have a plan and like you choose a field, like it's science and commerce and arts, like they just box us in and then you get a job and you'll be blah, 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 blah. And like my career has been like masters in economics, risk analyst at Amex, started a beauty blog, went from beauty blogger to weddings. It's like just been crazy. And like, that's what I keep telling people. Like if I meet, I was just going to say if I meet young people, but I would like to think I'm young. So, it feels so old to say when I meet young people, but like, like people in college and stuff, I feel like we really do have this system in India where it's like, go your bachelor's, then your master's, and get your first job, and then get a promotion. And that's not how life needs to be. Like, you can have very widely different career paths, and you probably won't even know what you want to do maybe into like 6-7 years into working. So it's okay. Like, we don't need to know what you need to do at the age of like 17, 18, which is what India expects us to know.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Last question, and sorry for putting you guys through this. Last question. What task do you most procrastinate on, Vineeta?
If I have to let someone go, it's very hard. So that's always those conversations. I like rehearse them in my head, and I think I'm trying to get better at those conversations. But you have to, I think no matter how good your hiring process is, you do make mistakes. And as a startup, the best thing that you can do for yourself and the employee is like to part ways early. But having those conversations is very tough. And I'm like, maybe like a PIP extended by like 1 more week, something's going to change. And all of those like really conversations which are fooling myself. But yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being candid. And again, sorry for putting you guys through this. We might send you something. So maybe a hamper will be on its way to you soon. Cool. So I think we have
recorded. So
we have a lot of witnesses too. Cool. So I think we're about a couple of minutes in. I'm trying to see how best to use these last 2 minutes. I'll do one question from the audience, not the Bitcoin one. And this should be a quick one. Do you still manage your finances or have a planner or an advisor in place? If you did, when did you decide to get one? And this is assuming the time crunch you have as entrepreneurs, and so being able to give, the time you need, the attention you need to your money. You can go in any order.
Only Morgan Housel and Basis.
Yay.
Now you can send me 2 hampers.
No, but the honest answer is, I do have someone who I work with, who just gives sort of like general guidelines. That he doesn't have much money to manage, sucks for him. But I think I've actually my goal for my 30s has been to just become exponentially better with how I think about money and how I manage money. Because again, especially when you're an entrepreneur, so much of your world sort of revolves around, I wouldn't say Excel sheets, but so much of your world revolves around how to create wealth, not self, but also for the people you work with, the merchants you empower, and the customers you have, right? So I think at some level, an understanding of how to multiply your wealth and also I think the one great thing that whatever little investing I do end up doing has taught me is just compounding, right? You have to be ridiculously patient. And I think that's where that's where money becomes interesting, right? It's the small things that compounded over a period of time, lead to great results. But yeah, I do work with someone. Sucks for him. He's dealing with peanuts.
Mehak?
Yeah, no, I don't work with anyone as such. I have someone in the family who's like a financial advisor, so it's like I just turn to them when it needs a little bit of help regarding that. But like Suchita said, I think it's something that I keep saying that I want to work on, and I want to get personal finances sorted and do all of that stuff. I think I should get started on that now.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. We'll end with, like most panels, just one sort of key piece of advice or tips, or a tip rather, for our audience, mostly women, young women, either aspiring entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, or just kind of thinking about career independence, things like that. Just one last takeaway from all of you.
I would say just ask for more. I think one of the biggest reason of the pay gap 27 to 42 is not having enough of those pay related conversations. So ask for more money, ask for more help at home, ask for more support in terms of mentors, and you shall get.
Nice.
I think I couldn't echo that more, man. But I think, along with asking for more, I think it's also really important to stand up for yourself, because I think, unfortunately, folks feel that someone is going to come and rescue you. And that's a lot of where even imposter syndrome, etc., comes from, right? But I think it's really, really important to stand up for yourself, because if you don't, frankly, no one else will, right? So be your biggest cheerleader, and really, stand up for yourself, and everyone else will stand up for you as you go along as well.
Nice. Mehak?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably like, just do it, because like I've been in that position where we do kind of think over a lot of things, and sometimes you just need to take that plunge and that first step to really get somewhere. So take that first step and don't think so much about the consequences, especially if you are in your 20s or early 30s. There's really not that much to lose. I think inherently we've been grown up with this syndrome of being, risk averse, or being told that this is how your life is supposed to be, and it's not supposed to be like that. So if you feel like you have something to offer and it's a unique value prop, then just go ahead and take that plunge.
Awesome. That's such a great note. So yeah, that's we'll wrap up with that. Ask for more, be your own cheerleader, and just go for it. Thank you so much, Vineeta, Mehak, Suchita. I know y'all are crazy busy, so we really, really appreciate this. Thanks for making the time. Thanks for sharing all your insights, learnings, experiences so candidly. This recording will be made available. We will post the link. So if anyone wants to refer to it for inspiration, please do. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who tuned in, and have a good night. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have fun. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.